Hello. First, I'm really glad that Jerry and Esther weren't a vibrational match last night to getting creamed by the car, or we wouldn't be here. This is awesome. Thank you.
Well, they're not even close to that, but you don't need them.
It was really good. Well, we're having a great time. Thank you.
Well, you are all extensions of source energy, and while we know we are all having a good time here, you can focus yourself into alignment no matter what. Don't lay your happiness on their responsibility to not get creamed.
It was a fun story.
I have to interrupt you because there's just, sorry.
See there.
So Esther and I were walking across to the fish market and over there by P.F. Chang's and Barnes & Noble. As we were crossing the street, Esther says, I'm always really uncomfortable crossing this street as we're going over.
She said, I feel like a fish out of water.
And I said, yes, isn't it funny how awkward this crossing is? And so we crossed over, and it has a countdown. It tells you how many seconds you have to get across. And so I'm watching it, 10, 9, 8, 7, We made it. Okay, and so then we went over, and then we came back, and as we're crossing the street, when I see 11, and then this thing came by, it was almost touching my body at about 40 miles an hour, and it was red, and it just went right by our face. We could have touched it with our hands right here at that speed. Esther and I were abreast, if you pardon the expression, and both of us walking forward, and this thing just came barreling through like that. And I told Esther later when we got back to the room, I said, only a week ago I was thinking, people must think I'm paranoid if they watch me because I'm just so old-fashioned. When I cross the street, I look to the right and left and left and right and left and right. Even though I don't see anyone, I'm still keep doing this, in case something does show up. And now here, normally I would be looking to the left or right. I would have seen that, but I'm watching this fool thing. I'm doing, 9, 10, counting my seconds down, how much is left. And would you play with that a little bit? Is there anything meaningful there, or is it just pure fun?
Well, since this is a workshop about focus, we suppose that it is prudent to identify what it is that you're focusing upon. In other words, we've been talking today already about how you let others sort of coach you away from your own guidance. And so your own guidance is to watch where you're going, to watch what your surrounding is. But now there is something else that is sort of dictating guidance to you. And your assumption sort of is, well, they must know what they're doing. In other words, they're telling me I've got 11 seconds, 10 seconds, 9 seconds.
I normally wouldn't be looking around like that.
There is that. There is that. In other words, I'm going to be...
So I can blame the government.
I'm going to be...
No.
I'm going to be aware. Well, often it is a very well-meaning person who distracts you from your own guidance and tries to get you to follow their rules. In other words, every law that is on the books is there because someone thought that it would make someone's or overall life better. But when you discount your own guidance, and the big story here is that when you are in alignment with who you are, there are all kinds of things brushing by you. And usually, you have no awareness of the close calls you have. The point that we want to make with all of it is that when you live in this world with so much going on, Esther had been contemplating as you were driving at how much is in traffic around you, how many different people with how many different intentions, and how you are unaware of the majority of the intentions. There could be bank robbers, by the way, that was one. There could be all kinds of things going on around you, and rapers, murderers, doer of what you consider to be inappropriate deeds. They're in traffic all around you all the time. They are part of your society. They are everywhere. But they are not a vibrational match to that which you are. And so even though there are many things not wanted by you in close proximity to you, they don't have access to you because you are on different vibrational wavelengths. And this is an example of that. In other words, something that had nothing to do with you, really, it had nothing to do with you. If it had hit you, it would have had a lot to do with you. But it did not, and it was not going to. And the driver of the car was in full control of what he was doing. In other words, he saw you, he knew what his ability was, and while it was a sort of rude and unkind thing to do, it wasn't life-threatening to you.
Like a kid brushing by you on a bike. Not intending to hit you either, but just for fun.
Now, as you stand, having had the experience, having lived the contrast of it, in other words, that was an momentarily uncomfortable experience. Yeah. And it caused you to begin thinking about, in other words, you're wanting to not have a replay of that because it was uncomfortable. And so now you're contemplating how you usually do and how you are ordinarily watching and why in this case you were not. And now you've put the thought out there, and it's an interesting thing. It does not take more than one or two like the two of you to have an experience in an uncomfortable environment to put a rocket of desire out there that will make for an improvement, that will bring something about that could very well prevent something that's in the process of becoming from happening. If you now focus into your vortex and from inside the vortex think this through. But if you from outside the vortex think this through, in terms of the injustice of it, the resentment of it, the inappropriateness of the sign, the inappropriateness of the driver, then rather than adding to the improvement of that corner and the future people who will be walking across that crosswalk, you add to the thought form of trouble about it, you see. In fact, it is the thought forms of trouble that have put those fool signs up there to begin with. In other words, the people deciding that you don't know what you're doing and you can't tell where the traffic is, and so you will walk when they say walk rather than using your own reasoning ability to walk. You are always much better off relative to every law in the world. In other words, how often is it prudent for you to move out of the way, and Esther says to you, the sign says don't go there. She'd rather keep the rule and not break the law than do the thing that's the best thing for you to do. And so really everything that we're talking about here is that in the vortex is the greatest law of all, which is the law of attraction, and all things that you consider to be good, and source itself there. And we just have to tell you, there is a huge and dramatic diversity between that which man calls God and the laws that man thinks God has made for him. In other words, all of those laws are outside the vortex when what you want is inside the vortex, but then you're trying to follow these full laws, and in the following of them, you're outside the vortex, not hooking up with what you're reaching for in all of that. That is the biggest story here.
Thank you very much.